Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Wednesday, October 14th, and this is virtual lunch number 152. And I'm honored that my colleague Ida Abbott is on.
My background is as a lawyer. I practiced for 20 years. I was a trial lawyer at a law firm called Heller Ehrman, but left there in the 90s and started a consulting practice. For the marketing people out there, I did it all wrong. I had no plan. I had no idea. I thought people would say, "What do you do?" And I would say, "What do you need?" And we kind of developed it that way. I mean, it was a different time. It was a different situation. I would never advise anybody to do that today, but it sure worked for me. And I wound up in a talent management, talent development consulting area that really didn't exist. So I was able to kind of shape it the way I wanted and have gradually narrowed it so that now I focus on mentoring and sponsorship. Those are areas that I've always worked in, but they're my favorites. And so I've kind of kept those and thrown away things like evaluations and a few other things, then added retirement transitions, because again, that's an area with a lot of need. And, you know, like professional development 25 years ago, there was no demand because nobody knew that they could get help or that they needed help or that this was an important area that needed some attention. Well, you know, and people operate in different ways, and some people need a framework and a path that's very clear in terms of step after step after step. I realized after being a litigator, you know, and having to deal with that part of my brain and all of the linear aspects of it for so long, that what was really me was not quite that strict and confined. And so it was more fun for me to find out what people needed. While I was in practice, I ran what was basically the professional development function in my firm. And we had formed a network. And to me, that really is the key to most everything anyway, is understanding who's out there, who can help you, who's a resource, who you can help, and in what different ways. So if I couldn't do something that someone needed, I would try to find someone to help them. I think a lot of the stuff about following your passion is great after you've kind of created a baseline. You've got to have some solid foundation before you kind of take a leap into just doing what you love. But boy, when you get there, it's great. And so, you know, it's been that way. But would I advise somebody to do it if they're not afraid of starving? You know, if they can handle the uncertainty. Someone said to me, I thanked him because I couldn't believe he just let me come in and talk to him. And he said, "That's all right. I love, you know, helping startups." I had never thought of myself that way. I didn't have that concept. And he was talking about taking risks. It didn't seem that risky. I could always go back. So there's that safety, a little bit of safety, at the same time being able to let loose and go out there and do the things you're good at and you like. Probably the kinds of skills that are valued in lawyers. Some of them will stay the same, but I think adaptability is probably going to be right up at the top. And lawyers are not known for their resilience and their emotional strength. So that's going to be a real problem. And I think it's kind of good that firms got into the whole well-being issue in the last couple of years, because that's really where they're going to need to emphasize a lot more what is helpful in order for their lawyers to stay in the profession, really. And, you know, I don't know what a career looks like long-term when you're living in this kind of world. There are a lot of virtual firms that started in the last few years, and they know people who have been working from home or working from remote offices for a very long time. So I guess we can go to them and say, how do you make it work? If we're talking about mentoring, there are two basic categories of function. There is the career function. This is what you need to know to be a great lawyer. This is substantively what you need to know. This is what you need to know about the practice of law, all the information. The second set of functions is called psychosocial. It's more emotional based. It more goes to what kind of lawyer do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? What style should I have? All the imposter syndrome stuff that we're talking about now. Every high performing professional has a little of that and some have a lot of that. It's waking up in the morning and wondering if you're going to be outed as being not as smart as everybody thinks you are. It's giving people some support that way, that you're not the first person that made this mistake. This isn't the end of the world. If it's the end of this, we'll move over here. It never goes away, but we can control it. And helping people just deal with that part of what it means to be a lawyer. Lawyers tend not to be very good at that. But what we're seeing now is a greater importance on that part of it. You can always, pick up a phone or call or Zoom or even a text and say, how are you? And saying, I'm having a hard time dealing with this. What about you? One of the aspects of mentoring that has received a lot more attention in the last few years is the recognition that it's mutual. It's a relationship. That piece of it is not hard to do once you put your mind to it and are willing to accept the fact that you have a lot to learn, no matter how old you are, no matter how experienced you are. I'm one of these people who would love to see the end of the billable hour because it really interferes with everything important. Some of that is helping people understand that it's not just, you're doing this for someone else. You're doing this for yourself and for your own future and the future of your firm, that this is part of being a leader. If you're a partner in a firm, you have an obligation to the people in your firm. To your clients, yes, but you depend on your people to serve your clients, and you need to trust those people. And in order to do that, you need to train them and understand where they're coming from and who they are and what they're able to do, what's holding them back. So this is part of your job. It's not just something nice. It's something that ought to be required. And if firms were measuring success and value by something other than strictly billable hours, and if lawyers appreciated that, and you only do that when you have a structure that recognizes other things are valuable and rewards them. The one thing that interferes with every aspect of development, but especially with mentoring and these kinds of learning relationships, is the fact that everybody is thinking only in terms of hours. And if I spend 15 minutes with you, it's 15 minutes I'm not billing over here. So it's a loss to me, instead of recognizing that if I hired you, I've got an obligation to make sure you are learning what you need to know and doing it right. So if you want something and you want to be noticed, you want to show that you take initiative, you're curious. It's another thing that we really undervalue is the importance of curiosity. Let people know, invite yourself along. Why not? It's scary. I say, would you mind? I'd love to do this. And what would somebody say? We can't bill the time. You say, so, all right, I won't bill it. I'd like to meet the client. There are a lot of partners who will bristle at that. They don't want you to meet the client. First of all, retirement today means whatever you want it to mean. People today who are retiring are healthier than in the past on average. They're vibrant and intelligent and, interested in things. And so part of the reason I use this design process rather than the linear process in my book is because there are so many possibilities. You just have to kind of figure out how to design the life that you want. Most of the startups today, most new businesses are started by people over 50. All it takes is an idea. The whole gig economy is based on people who want to work a little bit here, a little bit there. Sometimes they have to, sometimes they do it for the money. Sometimes they do it because they just want to work. But, why shouldn't you be able to change your mind if you try something out and you decide it's not as great as I thought? Who are you accountable to? And you retire for a while. There's nothing that says you can't come back to work. All the old norms are out the window. And if you want to work for 20 years, stop for 20 years, go to school and get a new degree and start a new career, you don't have to have a concrete plan, but just thinking about it in terms of the future, not just this minute. Anytime is a good time to start planning. And certainly if you're in your 60s and 70s and you haven't started planning, you got to do it like yesterday. And you need to start by doing a financial assessment, because if you don't know what your financial situation is going to be, if you don't have some sense of what you're going to be able to afford, you can't really make any plans.
Ida Abbott, everybody. Well,
Oh, thank you.